mathematician named Virginia Messina, and I wrote it with my co-author from my last book, Carol J. Adams, a brilliant feminist scholar and animal rights person. Anyway, Never Too Late to Go Vegan is supposed to come out in January. That might change. You can pre-order it now on Amazon.com. The cover might change. Everything might change, but the book is fabulous. And it talks not only about nutrition for people 50 and over, but it talks about social issues that come up for people over 50. Like when our kids come home from college and they expect the same old familiar recipes, how do we handle that? Couples we've gone out with our whole lives suddenly don't know what to do with us when we're socializing with them. When we're called to be caregivers, when relatives are ill and we're the caregiver, how do we justify our vegan values with our loved ones' values that may not be the same as ours, and they want us to cook what's familiar for them? It's a fabulous book that covers a lot of different issues about being vegan, and it's really especially good for anyone over 50, because the trend in veganism is college students are turning vegan in record numbers. College students are just going wild with veganism. Older people think, well, I missed my chance, or I wished I'd done that, or it's too hard for me now, I'm stuck in my ways, I'm already over 50. The book addresses all of those things and talks about all the marvelous reasons and easy ways to go vegan. So I highly recommend the book. It's called Never Too Late to Go Vegan. And if you'd like to take a postcard before you leave, this reminds you that it's coming in January. And again, that might change, but you can order it now. You can pre-order it, and you get a discount on Amazon if you order it in advance of January.
Are you going to make it Kindle printed?
Oh, it will. There'll be an e-edition and a print edition. Yes, the publisher does all that. The publisher is the same publisher who did the tie-in to the Forks Over Knives documentary. Raise your hand if you've seen Forks Over Knives. Wonderful documentary. You can see it on Netflix. You can rent it at the public library. It's a fabulous, fabulous film. The book that's the tie-in was published by the same publisher as publishing my book, and they always have an e-edition of everything. Okay, what else do I have to say? I did that, I did that, I did that. Now I'll tell you who I am. I'm Patti Breitman, and I run the Marin Vegetarian Education Group. Is that me? Wow, it's like a magic, like a fairy coming down. Verizon, my bill is ready. I'm turning off my sound. Wasn't even important. Okay. So anyway, when I moved to the Bay Area from New York, I bet you can hear New York is still with me, even though it was 28 years ago I moved here. I lived in San Francisco and then very, very briefly in Palo Alto. And when I lived in Palo Alto, I saw an ad in a newspaper that said vegan potluck dinner every Sunday night at some church. And it was the first time I ever heard about other vegans. I didn't know any. So I went to this potluck dinner, and Jennifer Raymond was running it. She was the author of a cookbook called The Peaceful Palate. To this day, it's my favorite cookbook. There are hundreds of fabulous cookbooks out, but The Peaceful Palate, it's out of print. It's hard to find. Amazon sells it for a lot of money because there are so few left. But anyway, The Peaceful Palate by Jennifer Raymond is my favorite book, and it's also Carol Adams' favorite book. Well, Carol Adams and I were co-authors on this and the new book, and we got Jennifer's permission to reprint many of our favorite recipes in this and in our new book. So if you read any books by me or by Carol Adams that have recipes in them, Jennifer Raymond's recipes are featured prominently because we love them. They're easy to make. Everything comes out great every time. And I just love Jennifer Raymond. She now lives in Ferndale on the Lost Coast, way up in Northern California, way up, almost in Oregon, on the coast. And she's in charge of the spay-neuter clinic at the Ferndale, that whole county animal protection agency. So Jennifer's still doing her thing. She has 5 vegan dogs. She has always had 5 vegan dogs. When she loses one, she adopts another one. She's a marvelous dog person and human person, and she's a fabulous cook. So her recipes will be in my new book and in How to Eat Like a Vegetarian. Why was I saying that? Oh, so I met Jennifer in Palo Alto, and she ran the local vegetarian potlucks. Then I got married and moved to Marin County, and I said to Jennifer, there's no vegetarian group here doing potluck dinners. You got to come up here and do it. And she says, no, that's why you moved to Marin. So in 1991, my husband and I started the Marin Vegetarian Education Group, and it's still going strong. And we have a mailing list. And if you go to the website, marinveg.org, you're welcome to join our mailing list. But all it is now is a mailing list. Once a month, I do a newsletter, and it tells you all of the events and interesting things available to vegans around the area, mostly in Marin. So if you're not going to come to Marin, you probably don't want to be on the mailing list. Though I do cover things in San Francisco and the East Bay and the South Bay for the Marin people. Most people out of Marin don't come there for events because we don't have public transportation. So anyway, Marin Veg is going strong. And since 1991, I've also been meditating, often at Spirit Rock Meditation Center. And with friends who also meditate, I started a not-for-profit called Dharma Voices for Animals. In the Dharma is the teachings of the Buddha. The Dharma is like the Torah for Jews or the Bible for Christians. The Dharma is what the Buddha taught. It's translated as the truth, but it's the way things are. Anyway, we started a not-for-profit called Dharma Voices for Animals because there is a lot of unintended suffering caused by people in the Dharma community who don't know about food choices affecting animals. So if you're a Buddhist meditator and if you're interested in the Dharma, you can go to dharmavoicesforanimals.org or pick up this card. It's a beautiful website. I didn't design this website. We hired someone who's fabulous who designed it. And I'm very proud of it. So if you're interested in the Dharma or you know anyone who is, please have them get involved. It's free to join. And we've had a huge voice around the world already. We've submitted a petition to Sri Lanka to pass a bill that protects animals. We've worked with monks around the world who are trying to get animal-friendly policies passed in their own sanghas. So it's a really interesting program. Okay, you came for food. Let's go to food. The first thing I'm going to demonstrate is a fig cranberry relish that most people will use for Thanksgiving instead of cranberry sauce. When I was a kid, I had no idea that cranberry sauce didn't come from a can. And it was always sliced and it had ridges in it, and I didn't know that those ridges came from the can. I had no idea. I just grew up, that's what cranberry sauce was. Then I discovered that cranberries are really a fruit. And except for November and December, it's hard to find them organic. I shop at a store that only carries organic produce, except cranberries. Because except in November and December, they cannot find organic cranberries. So I buy frozen cranberries. Now, on the recipe that I will hand out, and I only have 40 of them, so if you're here with a friend, take one, make a copy, and share, please. There are only 40 recipes. Anyway, when we turned in the manuscript with this recipe in it, the publisher said, you ought to tell people that they can only buy the fresh ones in November or December. And I said, that's why I said fresh or frozen. It doesn't matter. You can make this all year. So anyway, I'm using frozen cranberries because that's what's available now. And as a major point in vegan cooking, it's very forgiving. You seldom, if ever, have to follow the recipe exactly. If you're halfway through a recipe and you don't have an ingredient, the recipe 9 times out of 10 will forgive you if you use a different ingredient or if you just leave it out. It doesn't matter which. So for this recipe, you do need cranberries and you do need figs, but all the other things you could improvise if you didn't have them. So I'm just going to make this very quickly because it's a very easy recipe. It only has 5 ingredients. And the first one is 4 cups of fresh or frozen cranberries. Now, 8 ounces, I'm presuming, is a cup. Is that right? But I think it's not the same.
Were you going to hand out the recipes?
I was, but I'm not going to do it now because it's going to cause bedlam because there are only 40 and there are more than 40 people here. So I'm not handing them out yet. So just pay attention. It's really easy to memorize this recipe. It's an easy one to memorize, and if you can write down 4 ingredients, you've got it made. So 4 cups of fresh or frozen cranberries. So there's 1 cup. There's 2 cups. So 1 bag, even though it says 8 ounces, is 2 cups. Because liquid ounces and solid evidently aren't the same. You live and you learn. Okay, so this time I don't have to measure, it's the same bag, so I'm just going to guess this one has 2 cups too. So there, see, we're almost halfway through the recipe already. It's really a very easy recipe. And then, ooh, I forgot a major thing. Oh my goodness gracious, I forgot spoons. Oh well. 1 cup of dried figs. Okay, so dried figs you can buy in bulk. You can buy them anywhere. You can buy the kind that come in a circle, like a little round. And the only thing you have to do with these dried figs, and you don't really have to do it, though it makes it a little easier for the food processor, is to take off the little tough part of the stem. And you could cut them in half. I'm going to see how this works. I didn't even bring my cutting board. God, they're gorgeous. Ever look inside a dried fig? Fresh figs are gorgeous too, but the dried figs are beautiful. So how much did I say? 1 cup of dried figs, stems removed. So the stem you just remove by doing that, or you can cut it off like that. Not in there. This is a heavy-duty extension cord that somebody said I could do this demo in the Sierra Nevada and use this extension cord. But you never know when you do a demo where the plug's going to be. And this one, the plug is just a little too long to reach. It's right on the floor here. So I ended up using this heavy-duty extension cord for about an extra 6 inches. So I'm cutting these in half just to make it a little easier on the blade in here. Whoops. No, go in here so I know when I have a cup. What?
You want me to cut them for you?
Oh, no, that's okay. Thank you. So while I'm doing this, I will tell my favorite new jokes that have nothing to do with food this time, but I just heard this yesterday and I love it. No matter what kind of life you live and what kind of person you are, the number of people who attend your funeral will be determined in large part by the weather that day. Isn't that cute? It's true. And my mother just turned 85, and I bought her a book called Old Age is Not for Sissies. And one of the things in that book was really funny, too. I think Mark Twain said it. Almost everything funny is Mark Twain. He said, people are going to say such nice things about me at my funeral that it's a shame I realize I'm going to miss it by just a few days. And speaking of funerals, Michael Clapper once said, all you vegans in the room are going to feel mighty foolish one day, lying in a hospital dying from nothing. But it's part of why I love my Buddhist practice, because it reminds me every day that we're all going to die. We just don't know when. We just don't know how. But we're all going to die, so we can't be too serious about this. We do what we can to prolong our life. We do what we can to be well. But don't take ourselves so seriously. Have you noticed in the comics and everywhere, vegans are being made fun of now? That means we've arrived. Have you noticed that? It's true. There are jokes about vegans everywhere. There was a cartoon in the paper last week about vegans. People are always making fun of vegans. I think, well, that's a good thing. That means we're there. People know how to pronounce it now. People know what it means. It's kind of fun. When I became a vegan, nobody had heard of it. Bill Clinton is a 99% vegan. I think he still eats fish. He eats fish rarely, but he eats fish. That's why it's happened? Well, it was happening. The trend was happening before Bill went vegan. Yeah. No, AAR. Actors and actresses, and AARP magazine did a full story on Clinton on the front cover, and that was like, whoa, AARP is talking vegan? That's huge. For those of you under 50, that used to be American Association of Retired People. But they don't like that name anymore, so they just call themselves AARP now. It's like when Kentucky Fried Chicken realized fried food wasn't good for you. They didn't stop frying the food. They started calling it KFC, so you wouldn't know the F stood for fried. It's a very strange world we live in. It really is. Okay, so one food joke, just one. Why did let me think how it goes. Why did the tomato go out with the prune? Because she couldn't find a date. Oh, sorry. I actually snuck those into my new book. My co-authors were absolutely astounded how I did that. Through the book, we have little sidebars called Our Vegan Story. So each of us tells an answer to a question like what's in our closet or what's in our fridge or how we became vegan and how do we promote veganism. So when I talked about how we promote veganism, I said I love to tell jokes during food demos. Here are some of my favorites, so they're in the book. It was kind of nervy of me. Okay, so we have the figs. And we have the cranberries. And now 2 tablespoons of snipped fresh mint leaves. Well, that's not true. For years, I bought mint leaves in the store. They don't have to be fresh snipped. But now I grow them on my patio. So I do have some fresh mint leaves. And if this were kale, there, you can do it with that. I was going to say, if this were kale, you just run your hand down the stem and it comes right off. So I'm just going to tear these up into this as fresh mint leaves. You could save one for garnish if you were serving this like as a bowl of stuff to people. And then the sweetener is orange marmalade. How much? Good question. 1 cup. 1 cup of orange marmalade. That's the sweetener. Probably. I never tried it. I don't know. You can use anything sweet. Is there plastic on here that's keeping me opening? Thank you, Linda. Young people, love them. I used to be one. Thank you. Okay, now, I don't know if this is a liquid or solid, but I'm going to use the solid cup measure thing to make sure I have a cup. It would probably work. I'm sure it would be lovely. Or mandarin oranges. Any oranges would work. It wouldn't be as sweet, though, because this has sugar in it. But you could use fresh oranges. I mean, vegan cooking, that's what I love about it. I never liked to cook until I became a vegan because I hated touching dead fish. I hated touching dead chicken. I was a really bad cook. I tried not to spend any time touching the food. I didn't like it. And I never understood. I mean, I thought this is a real story, a lesson in humility. Everything I ever said I'd never do, I have done in my life. Be careful with the word never. I was never going to leave New York. I was never going to be a vegetarian. I was never going to be a vegan. I was never going to quit my job. I was never going to leave New York. I was never going to get married again. I was never going to live in a suburb. Everything I said I'd never do, I do. So be very careful when you say never. But I never did like to cook. I really didn't. And when I discovered Jennifer Raymond's book, it was such a delight to discover that grains are okay to touch and herbs are really fun to play with. And real spoons would be very helpful here. Can you see if the kitchen has any real spoons? Thank you. But we make do. Just out of curiosity, how many people here are vegetarian, not vegan? Don't be shy. We all start somewhere. Come on. And how many people are neither vegetarian nor vegan? We love you the most. Thank you for coming. You're brave. Thank you for being here. I'm not going to ask the vegans to raise their hands because I'm presuming if your hand didn't go up, you're a vegan. Okay, so now I know that this entire jar would have been perfect to just dump in there. You live and you learn. That's what they say. And you know how they say that that'll work. Thank you very much. They say that you teach what you need to learn. I teach cooking classes because I need to learn. I mean, I never thought of myself as someone who would teach cooking classes. I was a terrible cook. My family still laughs that I do cooking demos. They're like, are you sure? But as of January, I will have 2 books that I published with recipes in them, and it cracks me up. I was also a bad eater as a kid. I didn't like to eat. I didn't like food. And my mother threatened to call someone named Mr. Pumpernickel. She would say, if you don't finish what's on your plate, I'm going to call Mr. Pumpernickel. And I'd get all scared and I'd eat. And then if I didn't eat, she'd pick up the phone and dial a number. She'd say, hello, Mr. Pumpernickel, Patty's not eating. And then I'd eat really fast. My older sister pointed out to me she was dialing Grandma's number when she was calling Mr. Pumpernickel. So then I started watching her and I wasn't scared of Mr. Pumpernickel anymore. Okay, the only other thing that we're going to add, and this is optional, and some years I have left this out and it's fine to leave it out, is 2 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar. 2 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar. So here's 1. Whoops, here's 2. And it is okay to leave out. And if you don't have balsamic vinegar, you can use any vinegar. It doesn't matter. And if you don't have any vinegar, don't worry about it. Squeeze a little lemon in. And if you don't have lemon, forget about it. It's a vegan recipe and it will be good no matter what. Okay. Are we ready? Here comes the noise. Talk to your neighbor for a minute. It's a cranberry relish with figs. And this is great to eat on sweet potatoes, baked sweet potatoes. Oh, and here's another thing. I wanted to demo this with sweet potatoes, but I didn't want to turn on my oven this week because it was really hot up in Marin. So I went to the store to try to buy canned sweet potatoes because I remember as a kid they have them. They're all in this horrible syrup with like sugar and corn syrup. So you're just going to eat this plain on crackers. But you have to imagine it on roasted sweet potatoes. And something else I learned about 5 years ago that changed my life, and you probably all know this already, but I was new to cooking. Anyway, you can steam sweet potatoes. You don't have to bake them. So if you're in the mood for sweet potatoes and you don't have an hour, you just peel them and chop them and put them in a steamer basket, and in 10 minutes you can eat sweet potatoes. This changed my life. Because when I'm in a hurry, quinoa is my go-to grain because you can cook it in about 12 minutes. So I usually make quinoa, but sweet potatoes are even faster. And so if I'm looking for a base for a sauce, or I'm in the mood for peanut sauce, or I'm in the mood for something, excuse me a minute. I'm going to wash my hands again before we continue. Anyway, you can steam a sweet potato and use it just like any other sweet potatoes. You can mash it, you can just leave it steamed and sort of cut it, or leave it in the pieces you steamed it in. But this relish is great on any sweet potato. It's great on baked potatoes, and it's great just as a relish on the table with anything. Excuse me while I wash my hands. I'll be right back. Is this the way to the kitchen, or is there? Yeah. Excuse me, please. I'm just going to wash my hands.
Go to the second, bring it out.
Oh, you're kind. And what was that for? Oh, thank you. Got it. Oh, good. What part, Arlen?
Last time, mostly Brooklyn. Last time, Forest Hills.
Brooklyn's become so hot.
Yeah, well, it's hot slow. It's good.
Yeah, well, most of it's become hot.
Hi, Patty.
Oh, hi. Nice to see you. I'm in the middle of a demo.
Okay.
If this were TV, they'd edit out that part. Oh, you know what else, Linda? I don't know if the kitchen has this. I didn't bring a serving container. I guess I can use this or something. But I didn't bring a bowl to put it in. I have the things to serve it in. Do we have any bowls or serving containers?
Yes.
We can use this bowl, I guess.
No,
There.
we have a platter.
Okay, that'll
You want
work.
to lay it? You want-
Because eventually I'm going to just put it on a plate, but I need the machine for my next recipe.
do it
So.
for you.
Okay, thank you. Something else I'd like to recommend to everybody is pick one day a week and make about 4 or 5 or 6 recipes. You don't have to clean up in between them, so you only clean your kitchen once. You only have to rinse out the machinery. You don't have to really wash it well. You just rinse it out and keep going. And then you can create an entire deli in your refrigerator, so every night when you come home, something is ready to eat. Which is why I steam sweet potatoes. I'll make a lot of different sauces and stews and soups and things. And then all I have to do that night is put the salad together, but I've already chopped the peppers, I've already chopped the radishes, I've already chopped what's going to go into the salad. So it's like having a salad bar in my refrigerator. So all I have to do is heat something for dinner and steam a sweet potato or make quinoa. But sometimes on a Sunday, I will make an entire pot of rice or an entire pot of quinoa. I'll make 2 soups, I'll make a lasagna, and I'll make 3 sauces. And then all week when I'm hungry, dinner's in 5 minutes. You just heat something up and you make something to put it on. It's really easy. So I highly recommend making a few things at a time. That's about right. She took my bowl. Yeah. Oh. Is it coming back? Oh, she'll take this. Thank you. Oh, there you are.
Use the platter and just put the crackers out. Let people take the cracker instead of plating them.
Of course. And then what are they going to do with the cracker then?
Eat it.
No, but how are they going to get this on the
We're gonna
cracker?
put it on. Right?
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
I'll do it for you.
Thank you. Is that going to be enough for a sample for everyone in this room? Okay. Okay, I'm going to do a plug now for other people's books. The original book that helped vegans give up cheese was The Ultimate Uncheesed Cookbook by Joe Stepaniak. It's a marvelous book with very easy cheese-like foods that have the same texture, flavor of cheese, and I highly recommend that book for very easy cheeses. It's called The Ultimate Uncheesed, Uncheesed Cookbook by Joe, J-O, she's a fabulous woman, Stepaniak, S-T-E-P like step, Aniak, like maniac, the end of maniac. Stepaniak, Joe Stepaniak. That book changed a lot of lives because suddenly you realized you could make things that substitute for cheese and they're satisfying. But somebody bumped it up to a whole new level last year. Miyoko Shinner has written a new book with fermented cheeses that are so much like dairy cheeses that my husband won't eat some of them because he never liked those versions of dairy cheeses. It's called Artisan Vegan Cheese. Artisan Vegan Cheese by Miyoko, just like it sounds, M-I-Y-O-K-O, Miyoko Schinner, S-C-H-I-N-N-E-R. That book has really bumped up vegan cheeses to a whole new level. Was anyone here yesterday to see her demo? Wasn't that phenomenal? She teaches you how to ferment cheese without using animal products, without cows suffering. Does everyone know what happens to the baby cows on the dairy farm? It's horrible. Horrible. The dairy industry and the veal industry are the same industry. And the mother who gives up her baby doesn't give up. The mother whose baby is taken from her within 48 hours of giving birth cries and screams and bleats for that baby. And that's what dairy is. It's the cruelest of all foods. It's just horrible. I have a button that says milk comes from a grieving mother. And people who see it think, well, yeah, I guess you would still lactate if you were grieving. And I say, it's not about humans. It's about cows and what they go through for our preference for cheese. So Miyoko Schinner has made it easy to have fermented, fabulous vegan cheeses that have no cruelty and all the flavor, texture, and fermentation of real cheese. I highly recommend her book. So that's that plug. What other favorite books do I have? Oh, there's another great book just out, and the author spoke earlier today. Hope Bohanec, B-O-H-A-N-E-C, has a brand new book called The Ultimate Betrayal. And it's the only book I know of, The Ultimate Betrayal, that talks about all these new terms that are floating around, like cage-free, humanely raised, small family farm, you know, kind to animal, all of those phrases, and she exposes what they really mean. And so it's a fabulous book for people to say, I only buy humanely raised meat, or I only buy happy meat. It's a whole book now that exposes what's behind these so-called humane farms. And there's nothing humane, well, as somebody points out, it's maybe 1/100th of 1% better than a factory farm, but the animal doesn't care whether there are billions of others next to him or just thousands of others next to him. They still cut off the beaks, stock the tails, cut the ears. They do all kinds of cruel things, even on these humane farms. And the baby is still taken from the mother, regardless of how boutique the dairy is. No matter how humanely raised those cows are, they're still stealing the babies from the mothers so we can steal the milk for us. So it's a horrible, horrible, horrible industry. And that's why I love Miyoko Schinner for writing that book. And, oh, that's my mic, sorry. And I love Joe Stepaniak for writing her book. Hope Bohanec's book really exposes the myth. And there's another fabulous new book. Oh my gosh, raise your hand if you have a dog, if you live with a dog. A lot of dogs, not as many dogs as I'd have thought. Anyway, there's a new book called Beg. B-E-G. Marvelous book, and it's written by the woman who was the co-author of Skinny Bitch. She has reformed her ways. She does not curse anymore. She cleaned up her language, and she cleaned up her attitude and her tone. And this new book is like a love story to her 3 dogs, but she segues from, if you love animals, and you say you love animals, and you love dogs, here's why you should also love chickens. Here's why you should also love cows. Here's why you should also love pigs. It's a beautiful book, and I can give it to anyone who has a dog. It's a great subversive little book, because I walk every day. I'm the only one who walks on the trail I walk on who doesn't have a dog. I walk every day on the same trail near my house, and everyone has a dog, and I know all the dogs' names and some of the people's names. But because they call their dogs a lot more than their dogs call them, so you get to know the dog's name, you know? Anyway, I can tell them about this book, and some people, I just gave it to them and said, I thought of you because I know how much you love your dog, and I thought of you when I read this book. Here, please take it. And they've told me it's changed their lives. It's told me, 2 people have told me that book changed their lives. It's a marvelous book called Beg, B-E-G. And the first 3 chapters are just about dog love, puppy love. It's just sweet. About how she said she could never love a little white fluffy dog because she's a big dog person, and then a little white fluffy dog came into her life, and she was just going to foster it. And she ended up keeping it, and now, I shouldn't say it, she ended up keeping her, and now she loves her like her big dogs. But it's a really sweet dog, a really sweet book called Beg, B-E-G. Rory Friedman, R-O-R-Y is her first name, and the last name Friedman is 2 E's, like a freed man. Out of jail, freed man. Freed dog, right. So am I going to get my machine back? Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh, and the lid.
The lid? I guess we should rinse this off. Thank you. So, speaking of cheeses, I'm almost embarrassed to be making this recipe. I apologize for only doing 2 recipes, and here's why. As I said, we turned the manuscript in yesterday. I have been working like a maniac, and I'll tell you something. The first book an earlier book I wrote is called How to Say No Without Feeling Guilty, and my co-author Connie Hatch and I made it all up. It's what we knew how to do well. We were saying no and getting thank yous for our rejections and no's. People were always thanking us when we said no to them. So we realized we had something there, and we wrote a very successful book called How to Say No Without Feeling Guilty. Well, we made it all up, and it was a breeze to write, and it was fun to write. There was no fact-checking. There was no recipe checking, testing. It was just easy. And when I was slogging through the recipes of this book, trying to normalize, we have like 20 different authors contributing recipes to our new book. And we had to make all the recipes look uniform. And that's a pain in the neck. It was just a slog. And I said to Connie, we had so much fun in our book. Why is this one such a slog? And she said, never write a book with facts in it. You have to be careful. So the new book has facts and recipes, and they've been very carefully tested, and they're all attributed. What's that word? They're attributed, but there's another word. They're all verified. There are footnotes in the new book. Like, you see where we got our facts from. And in the middle of the environmental chapter, oh my God, my computer went dead, and I screwed up and could not go to the one study that was the source of half of my statistics, which is the UN study Livestock's Long Shadow from 2006. The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization did a study on the impact of raising animals for food on our climate. And that study is very influential in climate policy now. Anyway, my computer locked that website when I brought it up, kept me from using my computer for anything else. I couldn't get the sources of all my facts, so we couldn't use that study in the book. So I had to redo the whole chapter with different sources and different studies, because when I sent my first draft to the publisher, all of my references were books where I got my information. And the publisher said, that's secondary sources. You need primary sources. So I had to go to the footnotes in the books I used, find their original source, and then look up the study they got their facts from so I could verify that they got it right. So talk about a slog. This book was really hard to write because there was so much fact-checking and so much attribution we had to do. So my friend on How to Say No Without Feeling Guilty said, never write a book with facts in it. That just slows you down. But the new book has lots of facts in it. So I'm almost embarrassed to do a recipe about, now my measuring cup is gone. She cleaned, not the glass one, the metal one. No, that's a cup. That's like a, does this slide open? Hi, is my measuring cup somewhere?
It's right there.
Oh, thank you so much.
When do you want these? You want it to start happening?
We can pass them out now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to try?
Nah. Okay, so I'm embarrassed to be making a cheese-like recipe with those 2 fabulous cheese books out there that I recommended, but our book has this recipe. Ray Sikora, Raesokora, contributed this recipe because it's fabulous. She's in the Vegetarian Hall of Fame. The North American Vegetarian Society has a Hall of Fame, and every year they get different people in it. And she's in it because she has an organization called Plant Seeds for Peace. And it's a vegetarian education group, and she travels to schools around the country teaching about peace and vegetarianism. So this is her recipe, and it's a really fast, easy one. Now, the first time I made this, I called my co-author and said, there's a mistake in the recipe. It came out all runny and liquidy, and I had to double the amount of nuts. And she said, it's supposed to be liquidy and runny. It's like a dip, and I thought it was supposed to be a solid cheese. So I'm going to make it both ways today. You're going to see it as a dip, and I'm going to make it like a solid spreadable cheese. And it tastes, to me, just like cheddar cheese. But if you eat real cheddar, don't say real. If you eat dairy cheddar cheese, you may not think so. But anyway, I'm going to do this with 1 cup raw organic cashews and 4 ounces of red pimentos, and I think this jar is 4 ounces. You can also use roasted red pepper from a jar or fresh red pepper. I think pimento is red pepper. I don't know the difference, except this comes in smaller jars. I usually buy the big jar of red pepper, but this recipe calls for this, so that's why I use this. And half a cup of organic lemon juice. So let me share my secret with you. You'll see these beautiful organic lemons. I'm not using them. I'm showing you that the faster way, the easier way, and when you don't bring a cutting board, the only way is to use half a cup of organic lemon juice. I always have this in my refrigerator. Always have this in my refrigerator. so that when I'm out of lemons, I can still make recipes that call for lemons.
Does it have a preservative in it?
This has nothing in it but lemon juice. Absolutely nothing. Organic lemon juice is the only ingredient. Santa Cruz Organics is the brand. There's another brand, though, and they're very close in price, and you can't tell the difference. So whatever organic brand, where the only ingredient is lemon juice, I say go for it. I love it.
You can squeeze your own lemons and put them in the refrigerator in a jar. They keep fine.
Thank you. Duh. Thank you. And you know what that reminds me of? My sister was 17 when we both found out, but she still remembers it, and like it's a big deal to her, that you can peel a grapefruit. Until she was 17, she thought you had to cut a grapefruit in half and then cut around it and eat it in sections. And somebody once gave her a grapefruit like out on a picnic, and she says, well, that's very funny. How are you supposed to eat it? And they said, you peel it like an orange. She said, oh my God, you can peel a grapefruit. That's like a running joke in our family. So this is my new, oh, you can peel a grapefruit. You can freeze your own squeezed lemon juice. Thank you. Okay, now, does everyone know about nutritional yeast? Does anyone, raise your hand if you don't know about nutritional yeast. Nutritional yeast is dried yeast. It's not the same as baking yeast. It's not the yeast that makes bread rises. It's a flake. It's not brewer's yeast. It's called nutritional yeast. You can buy it in bulk in any store that has bulk, like Whole Foods or Rainbow Market or anywhere like that. And it is fabulous for just sprinkling on popcorn. It's fabulous for sprinkling on pasta. It's a cheesy kind of flavor, and it's really satisfying.
Where are you planning on sprinkling this?
In here.
And then onto what?
Why are you asking me that?
Because I saved the whole thing of crackers.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we're going to serve it on the next crackers. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so this calls for 6 tablespoons of nutritional yeast. And somewhere is a measuring spoon. I bet I know where. May I have the measuring spoons, please?
Still got
Thank
these
you.
left, and then I got the whole thing of crackers for your cheese. Looking at the slot.
6 tablespoons. What time does this go until? Okay. 3, 4, 5, 6. You may notice that this jar says pearled barley. Does everyone notice that? And originally it was a jar of Trader Joe's pasta sauce, I think. No, Safeway. I don't know. Anyway, buying in bulk saves a lot of money. For any kind of grain, for anything like nutritional yeast or quinoa or rice, buying it in bulk saves you money. You're not paying for the advertising. You're not paying for the packaging. So I reuse jars of things for other things, and at one time this was a pearled barley jar. But now it's a nutritional yeast jar. 1 teaspoon onion powder. Now again, I buy all of my stuff in bulk, but my onion powder at home had dried. I guess you have to put rice in it like you do with salt. I don't know why. It was totally, totally dry. Okay, I'm going to let somebody younger than me do this. Linda? Thanks. Can we just pass that around and let people take one? Thank you. If you could open these for me, I'd appreciate it. I don't know how to do that. Anyway, most of my herbs are in reused jars, like jam jars and things, because those are tiny when you buy them in the jar and they're expensive. But when I went to pack my onion powder and my garlic powder, they were both caked solid. So if I were home, I would just take a knife and loosen them up and use them. But for a demo, I thought we deserved really nice onion powder and garlic powder, so I bought new ones. Okay, 1 teaspoon of onion powder and ½ teaspoon of garlic powder. So this is the onion, so it's 1 teaspoon. One little jar. It was 4 ounces. 4 ounces of pimento or red pepper. Thank you so much. Let's give a hand to Linda, my assistant. Thank you, Linda. And this is garlic powder. Garlic powder is ½ teaspoon. That's the whole recipe. You got it. ½ teaspoon.
But it was 1 teaspoon onion powder, right?
1 teaspoon onion powder, ½ teaspoon garlic powder.
And this is for the thick version of the cheese?
Both versions. The same recipe. It's just how many nuts you use. So this is the liquidy one, I think. We'll see how it comes out. The first time I made it, it was liquidy. Okay, I'm adding the lemon juice. The lemon juice was ½ a cup. Yeah, that's like a real liquidy dip. And that's the way it's supposed to. I'm not going to serve this because you're going to get the solid one. But it's very, I don't know how to show this without spilling it. Oh, everyone see that? It's kind of liquidy. And that's the way it's supposed to be according to my co-author who... Okay, but we're going to thicken it by adding more nuts because we don't have that kind of time here. So I'm going to double it with 1 more cup of raw nuts. But she said it's supposed to be served like that, like it's a dip for nacho chips. So I'm just going to add another cup of nuts. Hallelujah. I don't think I need that. Thank you. What did everyone think of the cranberry sauce? It was good, wasn't it? And no cans and no ridges. You don't have to. You can, but you don't have to. Most recipes that call for soaking, I do if you want something very, very creamy, like if I'm making cashew cream, I'll soak them first. But for this, you don't really have to. I usually skip there are a lot of recipes that use tofu that say steam the tofu first. I usually skip that, and it's fine. That's why I love vegan cooking. You can skip the steps that take too much time. And you can still make the food. I'm just getting the bumps out now. Okie dokie. We're ready. Oh, I'm done. I don't need it. Thank you. It's very kind of you. Thank you. Okay, so are there any questions? They're going to put those on crackers and you're going to be able to taste them, and that's the end of my demo. But are there any questions? Wow, fast learners. Okay. So now, raise your hand. Raise your hand if you did not, only if you did not write down those recipes. Okay, those of you with your hands up get a recipe. And the rest of you, thank you for understanding that I had no idea that so many people would be attending this. So take one and pass them around, please, to the people whose hands are up. These will both be in my new book. They're not in this book. I'll be selling this book. This is my last book. This is about 6 years old now. I'll be selling this book for $20, including tax. You could put your hands down. It's an honor system. But when the recipes come, if you wrote them down, don't take the sheet. And then if there are sheets left over, you can take it. But anyway, those recipes will be in my new book that's coming out in January. And if anybody wants to know about that book, it's on this postcard. And we think it's coming in January, though that could change. Yes? This book has very simple recipes, many from Jennifer Raymond, but my favorite part of this book, and we have something similar in the new one, is the time-saving, life-saving, no-recipe dinner formula. It teaches you how to throw together a dinner without recipes. It's like any of these grains, any of these vegetables, any of these toppings, mix and match, and you have the main course. So they're very simple recipes, but this book is famous for its lists. We have lists, 10 things to do with nutritional yeast, 10 things to do with chickpeas, 10 things to do with dark leafy greens, how to eat more vegetables. We have lists to give you ideas. So just for example, I will read you 10 things to do with nutritional yeast. Okay, sprinkle it on salads, sprinkle it on popcorn, sprinkle on any pasta dish, add to soups, make a macaroni and cheese, see page 109 for a recipe. Use for a marinade in tofu, sprinkle on roasted or steamed vegetables, sprinkle on baked potatoes, add to polenta, and use in scrambled tofu. But your imagination can make that list 10 times longer. That's just ideas. So this book has a lot of lists of 10 ideas, 10 fast snacks or easy lunches, 10 sandwich ideas, 10 ways to eat more legumes. So this book is about a lot of lists and a few recipes and lots of good ideas. $20 includes tax, and if you're going to write a check, make it out to the San Francisco Vegetarian Society because I'm trying to support them. And did I mention that if you're not a member yet, you ought to consider joining? Yes?
Where can you sign up to join the...
Right here at this festival, they have the first table on the right. If you go outside and make a left, and you see outdoor vendors, there are outdoor vendors here under a canopy. You go out our door here and make a left, and all the vendors are there. They're the very first table, and they'd be thrilled to have you sign up to become a member. Oh, I didn't mention, when you're a member of the San Francisco Vegetarian Society, you get discounts at restaurants all over the San Francisco Bay Area. And if you ever eat at Millennium Restaurant, the expensive gourmet over-the-top vegan restaurant, one meal there, 10% off, is more than what you paid for membership for this Vegetarian Society. Seriously, you can recoup your investment with one meal at Millennium or a few meals at different places. Because you get 10% off at Millennium, and usually the bill is $50 per person. It's a very expensive but worth it fancy restaurant.
Sounds like you're recommending nutritional yeast over brewer's yeast, and yesterday the presenter was recommending brewer's yeast instead of nutritional.
Isn't it an interesting world? I don't know anything about brewer's yeast. She may be right. I don't know a thing. And was that Miyoko?
No.
Okay, I don't know anything about brewer's yeast. So it might be perfect for what she's recommending. But from experience, I can promise you that nutritional yeast is very flavorful and really good in all the ways I said. In fact, there's a brand called Parma, P-A-R-M-A, that makes a vegan Parmesan cheese. And the only ingredients are nuts. I think it's walnuts. It's walnuts and nutritional yeast and salt. That's it. You can make it yourself in a food processor and sprinkle it on popcorn or on lasagna or on pasta. And vegan Caesar salad. We have a vegan Caesar salad recipe in our new book that Miyoko created, and we got her permission to put it in. It's fantastic. Fantastic. No oil. It's a no-oil Caesar dressing that Miyoko came up with, and it's really good. But you have to wait till January and buy the book. Because I don't know it off the top of my head, but it's a great Caesar dressing. Actually, I'll demo that next year if I'm here again. So we're waiting for the platters. Is this one ready to pass around yet?
Yeah, you want to do it?
I'll do it.
Okay.
I'm going to start in the back this time.
They did last time.
Oh, they did last time? Oh, never mind then. We're going to start in the front this time.
Thank you.
Thank
What
you.
did you use on that instead of walnuts? Because I'm allergic to walnuts.
Is there any nut you're not allergic to?
Oh, lots.
Oh, pick another nut. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter? Okay. I love this with this. Thank you. This was wonderful.
I'm glad you liked it.
And you're so entertaining.
Thank you.
Besides all this food.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Pardon?
You want me to pass it out?
Thank you. That's very kind. So I want to encourage anyone who likes to cook to volunteer to teach a cooking demo for your friends or for the public library or for your church. You don't really have to be that good at anything. You need one or two recipes, and if you make them all the time, then it's easy to do in front of people. And it's a way to spread the vegetarian message to people at your church or your synagogue or your mosque or at your community center or your homeowners association or your workplace. Just volunteer to do a cooking demo. It's really fun because really nice people show up. And everybody likes what you make, whether it's good or not. They say it's good, you know, because they're very polite people. I like it. I only make what I like, so I'm presuming that other people like it. Did you like that? Was it good?
I love it.
Yeah. So thank you. Oh, wait, we have extra time. More jokes. Does anyone know a food joke? Anyone want to stump me with a food joke I haven't heard? Here's one I heard last year at the North American Vegetarian Society. Somebody told this one, and I hadn't heard it before. How can you determine how many vegans are in a room? Don't worry about it. You never have to. They'll tell you. I like that. Okay. Anyone have a food joke? If you don't, I'm going to tell mine. This is an old one, and most of you probably know this. A man goes to the doctor with celery sticking out of his nose and carrots sticking out of his ear. And the doctor says, wait, don't say a word. I can tell just from looking at you, you're not eating right. See, they're everywhere. They're everywhere. Thank you.